Hello, I am Satomi Ura. Today, I am talking about English education and higher education in Japan. I am currently teaching English at Meisei University and doing my doctoral research about nurturing global human resource in Japan. As we all know, economic activity is crossing boundaries and accelerating the mobility, not only product, but also services, education, and visible and invisible. So globalization is permeating our daily lives. In terms of business in Japan, Japanese business corporation chronically lack employees who can work in global context. So English is one of the dominant language in business situation. And moreover, foreign language education in Japan focus on English. Usually, Japanese business corporations have a custom to grow their employee after they started to work in the companies. Every company have their own corporate cultures and the way to make business in their way. However, discussion have developed among government, industries, and universities to tackle this shortage of global players. So expectation for university education to nurture human resource for global context. University education responded by designing courses to experience the project-based learning to use practical English with real purpose. Also, there are variety of courses in the university, of course, academic lectures and project-based learning. However, this is one of the aspects of reality among ordinary students in the classroom. They claim difficulty to use English, and how can we make students to become proactive and increase their interest? And most valuable thing in education is to stimulate student autonomy and encourage them to become individuals who have a positive subjectivity toward a global context. Here is initial subjectivity of some students in my study. Many of the students say, I don't speak English. And the reason why they think, according to the interview, they much worry about the correctness. Also, they see their peers, how they behave in a classroom. If peers don't speak English, they can't use English. That is negative peer pressure. Also, I might add the classroom discourse from primary and secondary education. English class, which focus on even communicative competence, adapt the question and response sequence. So teacher initiate the question and the student respond to the teacher's question. And in the classroom, they use material, the textbook, and even they focus on communicative competence. As I already mentioned about the interaction between teacher and the student, teacher initiate statement and student follow the instruction. And a lot of students claim that the correctness, because there is a norm, the student follow the native speaker's norm, the correctness is very important for them. But English as a lingua franca, this is a concept. The English is used among people who don't share their linguistic background. So the English is used among non-native speakers. So students can be aware that how English is used in the world. And this is the purpose of this study, and increase the student autonomy and subjectivity as a lingua franca users in a university language classroom. It can be helpful to grow potential global human resource. This is a research question for this study. How do students overcome difficulty of using English in a language classroom? And also, what are the effective educational approach to increase student autonomy and subjectivity as English users? In order to see autonomy in a classroom, I applied a conceptual framework. Shari and Servo 2000 proposed the model of learner's autonomy constituted from 3 stages. Raising awareness is the initial cognitive process that enables learners to be conscious about learning objectives. And the second stage, learners apply the previous learning experience into new practice. And on the third stage, they control their learning by themselves. Through these cognitive stages, learners' autonomy could be generated. According to the Dan, he reviewed the previous studies about autonomy, and 3 processes are seen in the most of the study. And to manage increased learners' autonomy and appropriate the starter as initial action, and monitoring, collaboration, and the interaction among students influence each other, and also evaluating learning outcome is very important. And subjectivity is psychological state of mind, and cognition influence their behavior. So with these concepts, I take a closer look at the data. My participant is a language classroom student, and they are second graders. And for ethical considerations, data cannot give any personal information. And I'm doing this research this academic year, 2022. From first semester to second semester, I observed and engaged student learning. And besides the lecture and the practice about English, a student engaged their activity to improve their English skill and use English by themselves. And the student instructed, they can find the theme of activity themselves. And this is one of the student presentation, and they decided interviewing the international student to ask what were the difficult things living in Japan. But student, during interviewing the participant, they changed and adjust their interview content for their learning. And from the data, when I take a closer look at the data, they see there are deconstruction of perception toward English. So activity gave them the chance to see the different view of English. So this is one of the example of deconstruction of a perception their English. Here is example how student found English as a lingua franca as practical use. Degawa is the Japanese famous comedian. So this is a family name. And TV program he is in, and he's traveling over the world using his English. And his English is not proper, but passion to achieve the mission. So students demonstrate their English interview, and they claimed they used Degawa English, which I explained earlier slide.
Chocolate and some salty crackers that are from Romania.
I don't speak English. I can't speak English. Awa. But I learned English very hard. So please teach me what how about please teach me English skill.
How to improve?
Yes.
Up. Yes, how to improve?
Yes. We want to speak English, but
So they didn't emphasize the interview's difficulty. Most difficult thing was previous documentation of the government, and she needed to submit. But they didn't focus her difficulty, and they shifted the content of the interview. They arranged their initial plan to ask questions, but topic was shifted how to improve English skill. Just talking English among Japanese friends, and in order to do so, they cannot think about their proficiency level. They just use their English.
Chocolate.
So from this case, we can see the activity that students control their learning. They can find a way how the actual use of their level of English and positive motivation to improve it. They need to understand their level and find out the way to improve more and practice more. That is subjectivity towards English usage. Proficiency level is not quite high. However, they motivated to acquire it, and proactive participation is very important. For my conclusion, how meta-cognition of ELF, English as a lingua franca, influence student autonomy and subjectivity. When students take their responsibility to manage activity, somehow they can perform with their existing knowledge, with their success. They go on the different learning. Free from correctness is meta-understanding English as a lingua franca. While they interact, they also influence each other and other peers can be influenced in a classroom. It can be seen as a social cultural environment. In order to promote ELF, Japanese students try not to hesitate to speak English among peers more, and so that they can increase their courage to become global players. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you for your time.